Have you noticed how some people seem to disappear from the world without warning, as if the noise of society could no longer reach them? No, they are not running away out of weakness, nor isolating themselves out of selfishness. There is something deeper happening, a silent awakening that transforms them from within, making it impossible to continue living in the collective's automatic rhythm. And perhaps you have felt this too, that strange discomfort amid empty conversations and repetitive routines. In this video, we will explore why these people disappear silently, what Carl Jung would teach us about this phenomenon, and how you can understand, recognize, and even respect this process within yourself. Prepare to discover something that challenges everything you believed about presence, society, and personal evolution. If topics such as psychology, philosophy, and the darkness of the human soul interest you, subscribe to the channel now. From which part of the world are you watching this video right now? Leave your answer in the comments. Have you noticed how sometimes you feel awake in a world that seems to be sleeping? It is like trying to talk about what really matters and receiving only empty stares. This feeling of estrangement is the first sign that something has changed within you. It is not arrogance nor madness. It is simply consciousness nudging and showing that life is not only the collective stage that everyone pretends to inhabit. There is a silent pain that does not bleed and does not scream, but corrodes inside like rust. It is the pain of seeing too much, of noticing that much of reality is built on shared delusions. You realize that people maintain invisible agreements to avoid facing the internal abyss they carry. And when you can no longer participate in this performance, you begin to feel out of place. The curious thing is that this does not arise as a great collapse, but as something almost imperceptible. Gradually, you notice that you no longer have energy for certain environments, certain conversations, certain social roles. It is as if your soul asks for silence amid the noise of the world. At this moment, the uncomfortable question arises. Am I going insane, or am I finally being honest with myself? Imagine someone who has always attended parties, meetings, or family gatherings. One day, for no apparent reason, this person begins to feel suffocated in these places. Laughter sounds false. Conversations seem like poorly written soap opera scripts. The body reacts with anxiety, headache, and inexplicable weight. It is not fussiness. It is consciousness saying, "This no longer serves me." Carl Jung said that consciousness is like a fire. Small or large, it always bothers those who still live in darkness. And when you awaken, you inevitably become a stranger among your own. Not because you want to, but because it simply becomes impossible to fit into the roles you had before. It is like trying to wear shoes 2 sizes too small. It hurts, pinches, and mutilates. This process is not only psychological. It is somatic, energetic. Those who have experienced it know that even social media can become unbearable. Opening a notification can bring more anguish than pleasure. Meetings, once bearable, begin to drain your strength. The soul no longer accepts living in environments that demand unconsciousness. It is here that many begin to disappear silently. Curious, is it not? They do not make a scandal. They announce nothing. They simply leave gradually. They close accounts, end cycles, abandon roles. It is not escape. It is lucidity. And when someone asks, the answer is never clear. Because how can one explain a pain that only those who feel it understand? The world interprets it as weakness, but in reality, it is courage. Courage to preserve oneself before collapsing. Perhaps you have already felt this. That emptiness in social gatherings, that urge to disappear without explanation, that weight in your body just for being where you did not want to be. It is an invisible but profound phenomenon. The disappearance of spiritually awakened people from society. But is disappearing really the end, or only the beginning of something greater? When someone awakens spiritually, they perceive that society is trapped in repetitive, almost hypnotic patterns. People chase status, approval, and distractions without noticing their own soul screaming. It is like walking at a masquerade party where everyone smiles, but no one truly connects. And this perception hurts because the truth is invisible to others, but impossible to ignore for those who are already awake. It is fascinating to notice that awakening chooses neither time nor occasion. It can happen in traffic, during a trivial conversation, or even silently while looking at the sky. Suddenly, the meaning of what everyone pursues seems empty, and the heart asks for something deeper. Jung would call this an encounter with the self, an internal calling that transforms the way one sees the world. And in that moment, many begin to withdraw. Those who go through this realize that superficial relationships no longer make sense. Longtime friends, coworkers, even family members can seem like actors on a rehearsed stage. And it is not about judgment or ego. It is the soul protecting itself from energies that do not resonate with its new state. Gradually, voluntary isolation becomes a necessity, almost a spiritual survival. At the same time, the external world reacts strangely. Awakened people who change their habits, preferences, and priorities are often misunderstood. "You are acting strange," they say. "Why have you changed so much?" There are no easy answers. The truth is that there is no way back. Each decision to withdraw is a step toward authenticity, even if the world does not understand. The curious thing is that silence becomes a companion. The space for reflection, reading, contemplation, or meditation becomes more valuable than any party or social gathering. Those who awaken learn to listen to their own internal rhythm and discover that this connection with themselves is richer than any external interaction. It is a kind of freedom that scares those who still live on autopilot. However, it is not only escape or passivity. It is a conscious choice to prioritize depth over quantity. It is caring for one's own energy and spiritual integrity. Those who choose this path learn to differentiate what nourishes the soul from what merely consumes time and strength. And curiously, this silent decision ends up inspiring others, even indirectly. There is a discreet beauty in this withdrawal. It is not about isolation as punishment, but a strategic retreat to flourish internally. Jung would call it individuation, the process of becoming whole, recognizing and integrating all parts of the self. This process requires courage because it is necessary to abandon old identities and conventions that once socially defined the person. And it is at this point that the cycle intensifies. The more the awakened person dives into themselves, the more the external world seems irrelevant. And the more irrelevant it becomes, the more they disappear silently from society, as if dissolving into something greater. But the question remains, is disappearing really escaping, or merely preparing the ground for an even truer presence? By withdrawing from society, the awakened person begins to notice subtle patterns that go unnoticed by most. Small manipulations, silent conventions, implicit expectations, all that once seemed natural now reveals itself as an invisible web. Jung would suggest that this is the moment to observe the collective shadow, understanding that society also carries its own internal conflicts. The process of noticing these subtleties is disconcerting. It is like watching a movie in which all the characters follow scripts you did not write, and you feel like shouting, "Wake up!" But you soon realize that there is no effect. External change does not come from words, but from the very distance and the way one chooses to live in coherence with their own inner truth. This withdrawal provokes glances, comments, and small resistances. Friends question choices, family insists on old patterns. And it is at this point that courage shows itself. Remain faithful to one's own journey, even when the world pressures you to fit in again. It is a type of silent strength that does not need to prove anything, but transforms the presence of the awakened. Many begin to experience a sense of alienation but at the same time freedom. Alienation, because the external world seems disconnected from their internal reality. Freedom because, for the first time, there is no need to pretend. It is like removing a mask that no one knew you were wearing and finally breathing without restrictions, without needing to meet the expectations of others. Jung would say that this is a stage of integration, recognizing and accepting one's own uniqueness, even if it shocks or confuses others. By letting go of conventions, the awakened person learns that the value of existence is not in external approval, but in the authenticity of their choices. It is a deep lesson that is not taught in books nor found in forums. Everyday life changes subtly, but significantly. Routines once automatic gain new meanings. A simple walk, a reading, or a deep conversation becomes a transformative experience. Every moment becomes an opportunity to notice, reflect, and grow, while the excess of superficiality in the external world loses its weight and relevance. This transition, although silent, is intense. There are moments of doubt, loneliness, and even fear. But each step toward one's own essence strengthens the connection with something greater. The awakened person begins to perceive that disappearing is not loss, but reorganization. Society continues its course, but individual consciousness chooses another frequency, another rhythm. And so, the cycle of withdrawal continues, preparing the ground for the next phase, encountering communities or experiences that resonate with this new frequency. But before any reconnection, there is this space of silence and observation, where one learns to distinguish what nourishes the soul from what merely consumes energy. And it is precisely at this point that many begin to transform their internal reality profoundly. With withdrawal comes an unexpected effect. The external world ceases to be the priority, and introspection becomes the main tool of learning. Every thought, every emotion, is now a map guiding the awakened person toward understanding themselves. Jung would call this internal dialogue, the daily encounter with the unconscious that was previously ignored or repressed. At the same time, this journey reveals the importance of conscious choice. Small decisions now carry significant weight, from daily habits to human interactions. The person realizes that everything they consume, everything they observe, and even the way they speak influences their inner energy. And it is in this care that resistance and clarity are built in the face of external chaos. Many discover that ordinary social places become toxic. Cafes, offices, parties, or even friend groups begin to drain more than they offer. Awakened consciousness acts as a filter, separating experiences that nourish from those that drain. And in this process, patience becomes an ally. There is no rush, only full attention to one's own rhythm. Silence, once uncomfortable, is now appreciated as an ally. It is in silence that the mind reorganizes. The soul finds space to create, reflect, and integrate learnings. Movies, books, solitary walks become tools of self-knowledge. And this constant practice strengthens perception, as if every instant were a lens that clarifies internal vision. Curiously, this withdrawal does not mean total isolation. Awakened people learn that connecting deeply with a few is much more valuable than superficial interactions with many. The quality of relationships begins to be measured by authenticity rather than quantity. And so, more meaningful bonds emerge, still rare, but true. Jung would say that this is the point where individuation intensifies. By choosing their own frequency and filtering the surrounding reality, the awakened person begins to become whole, recognizing their shadows and lights. Every conscious act is a step toward integrating internal aspects that were previously fragmented, bringing balance and emotional autonomy. There is an almost invisible, yet powerful effect. The energy of the awakened begins to influence the environment, even without intention. People nearby notice subtle changes, growing respect, or silent admiration. It is the strength of the authentic being manifesting, without noise, without need for validation. Only the presence that radiates coherence. And thus, the cycle of withdrawal and introspection creates a new internal reality. It is a transformation that few notice from the outside, but it completely redefines the life of the awakened. Each silent step in personal evolution prepares the person to deal with the world without losing themselves, remaining whole even when everything around seems to collapse. Over time, those who awaken spiritually begin to perceive collective patterns that had never been questioned. It is like seeing an entire city repeating mechanical movements, unaware of its own rhythm. Jung would call this the perception of the collective psyche, a perspective that reveals how the collective unconscious influences daily behaviors, making them almost automatic. This perception creates a paradoxical feeling, closeness and distance at the same time. You observe loved ones following paths that do not resonate with your soul, and you feel compassion, but also detachment. It is a kind of silent love where one wishes well, but does not get involved in suffering that is not theirs. It is a subtle learning that requires emotional balance. Many begin to notice that social, political, and cultural problems only carry weight while absorbed personally. Those who awaken learn to set invisible boundaries, avoiding being drained by other people's dramas. And this is not selfishness, but conscious survival, preserving energy for actions that truly matter, both internal and external. Routine becomes more selective. Commitments, relationships, and even entertainment are evaluated by the criterion of depth. The trivial ceases to be interesting, and the superficial becomes exhausting. It is as if life becomes a natural filter, separating experiences that nourish consciousness from those that merely distract and consume vital energy. Curiously, this selectivity generates a sense of solitude, but not emptiness. It is a chosen solitude, a space that allows personal evolution without external interference. Jung would speak of reconnection with the self, and it is in this space that ideas, insights, and creativity emerge, untainted by the expectations or noise of the world. At the same time, one notices the importance of recognizing repetitive patterns within oneself. It is not only the world that is mechanical. The mind itself stores inherited habits and beliefs that need to be observed and transformed. This constant self-analysis becomes a tool for growth, making each choice more conscious and each action more aligned with the essence. The experience of withdrawal also opens doors to perceive how small internal actions reverberate externally. A gesture, a word, or even the posture in the face of challenges influences the environment without being noticed. It is the silent power of awakened presence, capable of inspiring effortlessly, simply by existing coherently with itself. And thus, the person begins to understand that disappearing from society is not synonymous with giving up, but with positioning oneself at a higher frequency. It is a process of filtering and internal alignment that prepares the ground for more meaningful interactions and more conscious choices. But the journey still continues, and the next step is to understand the impact of this transformation on one's own perception of the world. Over time, the awakened person realizes that their disappearance from society does not go unnoticed, even if silent. Small changes in routine, more introspective attitudes, and conscious choices begin to be noticed. It is as if the world senses an absence that cannot be explained, and Jung would call this psychic resonance. Your internal energy influences the collective without you needing to say a word. This awakened perception provokes curiosity and also strangeness. Friends and family may try to understand why you changed, but your explanations sound insufficient. Silence becomes its own language, and withdrawal, a wordless teaching. It is the power of internal transformation. Those who are awakened do not need to convince, they simply live their authenticity. At the same time, distancing generates clarity about relationships. The person perceives who truly contributes to their evolution and who merely maintains superficial patterns. This analysis is not rational. It is intuitive, visceral. Jung would speak of the voice of the soul, that inner calling that reveals who deserves your energy and who does not. It is a silent filter, yet deeply effective. Many discover that everyday life becomes richer with less external interference. Simplicity is appreciated, and moments that were once trivial become sources of insight and creativity. Walking alone, observing the world, and reflecting on experiences becomes a daily spiritual practice. The absence of external noise allows space to hear one's own mind and heart. It is fascinating to notice that the external world continues its course, almost unaware of individual awakening. People follow their routines, ignoring inner depths, but the awakened person no longer feels part of this automatic flow. This distancing is not resentful. It is neutral, observant. It is an attentive gaze that understands but does not get involved in the chaos of others. Silent transformation also opens doors to deeper self-knowledge. Jung would say it is time to integrate shadows, accept vulnerabilities, and embrace neglected aspects of oneself. Each step in conscious solitude strengthens self-understanding, and the person begins to realize that their own essence does not depend on external validation. It is a silent and profound power. This path requires patience and internal discipline. It is not always comfortable to observe the world from outside, feel different, or face strange looks. But it is in this discomfort that awakened consciousness strengthens. Each moment of silence, each decision to withdraw from external patterns, is a brick in building a life aligned with inner truth. And thus, the silent disappearance from society is not only physical, but energetic and psychological. Each choice, each gesture of conscious presence, transforms the perception of reality and creates an internal space of freedom. The journey continues, and the next step is to perceive how this withdrawal shapes one's own relationship with purpose and meaning, bringing new responsibilities and opportunities. With withdrawal, the awakened person begins to perceive the importance of consciously choosing their environments. Spaces that were once merely routine settings are now analyzed for the energy they emit. Jung would say that the psyche is sensitive to the surroundings, and each environment unconsciously influences our thoughts, emotions, and decisions. It is a natural filter that protects and strengthens. This perception leads to a redefinition of priorities. Social events, meetings, and gatherings are evaluated not by obligation, but by the growth potential they offer. The superficial loses space, and attention turns to experiences that nourish the soul. Life becomes selective, yet organically, not forced, valuing authenticity over appearance. Curiously, this change creates a kind of silent magnetism. Awakened people tend to attract others who resonate at the same frequency, even without conscious intention. Jung would speak of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem guided by an invisible force. It is as if the universe filters connections, bringing together those who are ready to meet. At the same time, solitude is no longer feared. It becomes a strategic ally, a space for reflection, integration, and self-discovery. Solitary walks, deep readings, and moments of contemplation become essential experiences. And the curious thing is that the more comfortable one becomes with their own company, the less need there is for external validation. Withdrawal also reveals truths about human relationships. The awakened person perceives who contributes to their growth and who maintains patterns of dependence or superficiality. This perception does not create resentment. It creates discernment. It is the ability to observe without attachment, maintaining empathy while preserving essential boundaries for one's own energy. Jung would suggest that this is the point where individuation consolidates. By filtering environments and relationships, the awakened person integrates their shadows, strengthens virtues, and moves toward their own wholeness. Each conscious decision is a step toward a life aligned with the essence, without concessions to please or fit into the expectations of others. The change, though silent, reverberates externally. Friends and acquaintances notice something different, but often cannot explain it. It is a firmer, more coherent, and centered presence. This invisible strength attracts respect and curiosity, even if the awakened person does not seek recognition or approval. They simply exist in integrity. And thus, strategic withdrawal creates a field of internal power. It is not dominion over others, but dominion over oneself. Each choice, each silence, each conscious presence strengthens the spiritually awakened person, preparing them to interact with the world meaningfully and aligned, without losing their own essence. At the final stage of this silent withdrawal, the awakened person realizes that their presence in the world does not need to be loud to be significant. Each conscious gesture, each chosen word, each action aligned with one's own essence resonates more strongly than any speech or social convention. Jung would call this authentic action, a direct reflection of the integrated self. Over time, one understands that external detachment strengthens internal freedom. The less validation is sought, the clearer the perception of one's own purpose becomes. The distractions of the world lose weight, and the person begins to walk with focus, realizing that being present with oneself is the first step to impacting the world truly. At the same time, this silent journey reveals a fascinating paradox. The more one withdraws from social noise, the more deeply they connect with life. Small experiences gain greater meaning, and true encounters, rare but intense, become unforgettable. Jung would say this is the encounter with the deep self, where the exterior ceases to dictate the value of the experience. Many realize that disappearing from society is not synonymous with isolation, but with energetic and psychological reorganization. It is choosing how to spend attention and vital energy, preserving integrity and cultivating conscious presence. Each strategic withdrawal is, in fact, a silent preparation to influence the world without losing oneself in it. This perception also creates space for true compassion and empathy. The awakened understand that it is not about judging what others do, but recognizing different choices and rhythms. This awareness allows acting with clarity, without engaging in unnecessary dramas, keeping energy focused on experiences that truly matter. At the same time, withdrawal creates opportunities for internal and external innovation. Ideas, projects, and relationships become more authentic, free from the expectations of others. It is a kind of creativity that arises from observation, silence, and introspection, which only those who follow this path can fully experience. Jung would say it is the self expressing its truth. And even though the external world continues turning in repetitive patterns, the awakened person no longer feels imprisoned. The freedom gained internally transforms the perception of reality. Each choice reflects purpose, authenticity, and conscious presence. It is a disappearance that paradoxically generates a stronger presence. And thus, the cycle of silent withdrawal is completed, preparing the person for deeper interactions, more aligned decisions, and a life not dictated by the collective, but guided by the integrated self. It is the pinnacle of awakening, understanding that disappearing from society is, in fact, creating space to exist fully, coherently, and truly free. And so, what did you think of this dive into the silent awakening of spiritually conscious people? Have you already noticed signs of this in your own life or someone close? Share in the comments which character or thinker you want us to analyze in the next video. Remember, each step of self-knowledge is a step toward inner freedom. If you want to continue learning about these topics and discover how to live more consciously, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, because new content that will transform your worldview is coming. These 2 videos in front of you are not here by chance. And if everything you believe about yourself is just a reflection of someone else's gaze? Click now on one of the videos beside you and start breaking this mirror. You will have to risk the click. So, which one will you choose?